I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Oh my. What's up, Army? Welcome back to the BTS Break the Silence docuseries after show here on AfterBuzz TV. I'm Veronica Valencia, but I am only one part of Team Kim Suk-jin. Joining me today is my awesome co-host. She also is the host of K-Pop Weekly at AfterBuzz TV. Everyone, Trina Dong.
What's up? Hi. Yay. I love being here with you talking about BTS. That's all I ever want to do all the time.
All I ever want to do all the time. I've been waiting for an excuse to have a team name Kim Suk-jin, so I am taking it. I am taking it. Everyone, coming up later in the show, we are going to be talking about the end of the Love Yourself tour, but the beginning of the Speak Yourself tour, kind of the day-to-day challenges of what the members face while actually on tour, life as an idol, the music process, and we also have some news coming up. We've got another live concert to talk about. And finally, for our special segment, we are going to get into some records. You know, BTS is breaking the silence, but they are also breaking some records, and we're going to be telling you exactly what numbers they are crashing. But before we get into any of that, crashing, breaking, one of those works. All of it. But before we get into any of that, Trina, what were your overall thoughts for episode 3? Now, everyone, we're covering episodes 3 and 4.
Yes. Episode 3, I thought was a lot of fun. I really liked that we got to be out in the world with JHope and Jimin a lot. That was fun just to kind of see it was sad, a little bit of it just from JHope's feelings, but it was funny just watching them being normal and trying to do a normal thing. Otherwise, the rest of the episode, I liked watching the end of that tour, and it's nice to, we remember outfits, right? We remember these moments, and so it's nice to relive and also see what they were going through while we were kind of just watching it on YouTube.
Yeah. Oh, I definitely agree. I think, we kind of talked about it last week with episodes 1 and 2, that the beginning of the Love Yourself tour was very hectic. There was a lot of hardships that the members had to overcome. You could tell that it was taking a toll on them mentally and physically. But I feel like, obviously, once you get into the swing of things and once things come to an end, they start to settle down. And so this episode, because the Love Yourself tour was coming to an end, it felt like you were saying, Trina, the members kind of had a moment to have a little bit more fun, or at least that's what we were able to see with JHope and Jimin kind of going out and about. And, but we also, of course, did get their commentary on kind of like what it's like to be an idol, and the things that they have to face, JHope with the paparazzi, as well as Jin talking about, kind of how he has 2 identities and, kind of people coming in and out of your life. So obviously they're touching on some big topics, but overall the tone did feel much more positive because I feel like they kind of settled into a groove once the tour is over, of course.
Yeah. I agree. I totally agree. Let's get into it before I talk about way too much, but I loved the episode so much and I want to watch it the rest of the year.
Reach. So let's get into kind of the first topic, which is, the end of the Love Yourself tour. We get to see their final concert, which is a concert in Thailand. And, what a way to go out. It's like everything kind of we've been seeing, at least so far in terms of stage production, has gone well up until the last concert. And we see, the stage almost about to collapse. What were your thoughts on that?
That reminded me of Selena. Did you ever see the movie Selena or know about Selena? So when I think she was in South America when hers happened though, but it was a very scary concert where she was still performing on her stage as the audience kind of bum rushed it. And so it was moving, and it reminded me of one of those moments because I was like, whoa, if this giant audience bum rushes these guys, which we knew it didn't because we would have known that happened, but it's very scary. But it was really cool to watch how urgent the entire staff went to try to figure this out. And then the guys, they all have this connection to where it almost seems like they under-explain everything, but they know what they're trying to do or what they need to do. That was one of those scenarios. Of course, we're only seeing a little bit of it, but I felt like everybody was just like, okay, this is what we got to do. We will go do it. I have now taken in that knowledge of exactly what I need to do to not hurt myself, and we'll go from there. So I thought it was really interesting to see. I would never want it to go poorly, obviously, but the crisis management skills of that whole staff is incredible.
Oh yeah, it was very great to see kind of how the team stepped in at a moment's notice to try and handle the situation before it got too out of control. And you know, from the moment there, they were like, "No, you can't go out and you can't do a full choreography because it's dangerous." And kind of like you were saying, Trina, all the members kind of have a feeling of what's going on. They don't need a lot of explanation. It's simple, like, you can't do that, it's dangerous, boom, done. And they kind of go out and do what they need to do. But it's a very scary situation because obviously when you're in the crowd, you're not aware of any of this. And I feel like sometimes after watching something like this, you'll go to whether it's, any type of concert, you'll go to a concert and be like, wow, I wonder what's going on behind the scenes. Like sometimes, with BTS specifically, sometimes they'll do choreography, sometimes you don't. And if you're in the audience, you might be wondering, oh, they're performing Save Me. Why are they doing choreography? There's choreography to this. You might be thinking that, but it's not until a documentary like this comes out that you see, oh, something like that could have been happening behind the scenes that I had no idea about.
Absolutely. It's very, because in the moment, of course, everybody's going crazy, but that's also what's scary, if they can control the audience, if it happens to be near them somehow. And they keep the audience like pretty far away at these BTS concerts. They're no
Yeah.
fools. They know what they're doing. But there's fears of all of those things happening in front of so many eyes too.
Yeah. I'm just very happy that the situation was able to be contained
Mhm.
because I can't imagine the feeling anybody would have if like the stage became, totally unusable and they would have had to stop performing. I can't that was their last show. I can't imagine the feeling that they would be, feeling in that
Yeah.
because it's the last show. They want to go out with a big bang, and then this production incident happens. And so I'm just happy that that the team was able to get it under control and they were kind of able to go and continue the performance in
Mhm.
a safer way.
Absolutely.
Now, that talking about, that the show will go on,
Yeah.
they are also always working on their music. Now, while they're working on stage, they're working on their music off stage, like behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So, in this next part of the documentary, we also kind of got to see a little bit more of the music process, which
Mm.
I personally think is kind of really cool, especially in this moment right now that this documentary came out. We are getting tidbits of the music process for their newest album.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's kind of cool connecting those dots.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially watching someone like Jimin that's newer to it. And so he's not always in the studio like Suga or RM and always making music constantly. So we again are exposed to, his vulnerability when he's making this song, even though like it's obvious to everyone else that it was perfect, right? But to him
Mhm.
it's happy, exciting, and all of those things. But yeah, it's really fun to watch their process there and watch how they handle the process. I think we can learn a lot from these guys always. And I think in a documentary like this, when the camera's around, they're not putting on a show by any means. They're just doing their thing. And it's really inspiring to watch.
I love, Trina, that you say that there's something to always learn when it comes to BTS because that's so true. As Army and BTS, there's always something to learn about each other. And even
Yeah.
between the members, there's always something to learn between them because in this process with Jimin and V kind of, going through their music process, recording these songs, they're starting to kind of see, like you're saying, what it's like for Suga and RM or anybody who writes their music. Jimin mentioned it took him a long time to finish his song.
Yeah.
And, so I'm sure in that moment he's learning about, wow, I'm really starting to see how much you guys like scrutinize your own songs and trying to reach deadlines and put out these albums and stuff like that.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's especially when it's also, they put them out on SoundCloud, right? So they're putting them out in this space that kind of relies on independent listening and a space that's not as easy maybe for some people to just go to Spotify and discover, or put on a Spotify playlist, put on an Apple Music playlist. And so people are listening to this music in a different way and they have much less following on these, which has always been confusing to me. on SoundCloud, these K-pop stars that go solo, that do their solo tracks, I think they're probably obligated to do it at a place like SoundCloud for monetization reasons and contracts and stuff. But there's not giant followings on there. So I think that's also probably scary too, is that you might not see the numbers that you're used to.
Yeah. I don't see, it's funny because I feel like for BTS it's so different, and they kind of talk about this in episode 4 that we'll get into when they talk about messages and goals.
Yeah.
But I feel like for BTS it's so different. You know, as a music artist, it's not wrong that if when you put a song out that you want it to succeed, that you want to see high
Yeah.
numbers because you want people to discover it and, you know, listen to the music that you put out there, listen to your song, listen to your message. But I feel
Hmm.
like for BTS, obviously their goals have never been to create, you know, big numbers. Their
Yeah.
goals have always just kind of been, I want to put this out there and I want people to listen to it. And RM even kind of says it. I think this might be an episode at the end of this episode, or the end of
Yeah.
episode 4. I don't remember specifically, where he's like, you know, I kind of want to give something through music, and then they take it and they give me something through listening to it.
Yeah.
So I feel like for them, it's always just about, I just want to put it out there for me. And kind of, it's like that mindset of, I'm going to put it out there for me. And if people listen to it, that's great.
Yeah. And it's also army specific too, like wanting to make sure that we enjoy what they're doing, which we likely always will, of course. But you know, there's those fears too. And it was kind of what Jin was saying in the last 2 episodes about, or no, it wasn't. It was what I was talking about with this upcoming album conversation, where Jin was like, I want to put something out like Spring Day, something that didn't, you know, necessarily pop off on charts, but we all know that song and it's all over the place. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, that also proves your point right there too.
Yeah. So I feel like it's such a different world, you know, kind of trying to put your content or your music out there on SoundCloud, which doesn't hold the same properties as like putting it on iTunes or
Yeah.
Spotify, where it could be more easily discovered. But it's very different from kind of putting music out there on that platform as opposed to living life as an idol, which is you have a company behind you
Yeah.
who is marketing you all the way through, you know, trying to get as many eyeballs on you as possible. And
Uh-huh.
that's kind of something we touch upon in the later part of this episode, which is life as an idol. And
Hmm.
that was when we kind of saw J-Hope and Jimin going out. We hear a lot about Jim, Jin, and his feelings. So,
Yeah.
like, Trina, what did you kind of think about, you know, their opinions and what they're saying about like kind of living as an idol, you know, having paparazzi wanting to take a picture, having people in your life, and
Yeah.
maybe they're there one day and not the other.
I think for one, it was interesting watching J-Hope and Jimin be out and how they're so different out. So J-Hope was very nervous from like the jump, and it changed in his face. And we'll probably touch on other things that he says later about, you know, just fears in general of with being an idol, but that you could tell that scared him. And then I think Jimin is more like, I got to get something done, and I'm kind of just not going to let whatever this fear might be that I might feel, I got to go get it done and we'll get it accomplished. And so that was interesting because they both clearly had different vibes about it. And so, you know, it's a mindset and it depends on probably daily how you're feeling. Like, are you feeling okay with the crowd that day? Or are you feeling like you'd rather just kind of be the one to stay in the car? I feel like they probably switch those roles all the time. And then with Jin, it's kind of the same thing, only he's battling it internally. And he's
Yeah.
saying, I have, you know, Worldwide Handsome, and I have the guy that wants to chill and read a chapter or a page
A
and
page.
and play a video game and going back and forth. I would imagine that would be what it's like for most of us if we made it to those high standards. We were a normal person once. He was literally discovered on the street. And then he went to being, you know, one of the most popular idols in the world. So I really feel, I'm glad that he exposed that, because I think that's how a lot of people feel just in life. And, you know, it's kind of sad because the magnitude of their feelings are so much greater because of all the eyes on them.
Yeah. I feel like just based on, they've come so far and they've blown up just their music, their presence. And so having all of those eyeballs on you all the time can be it's a lot of pressure and it can give you a lot of, anxiety, I would feel like, especially because BTS, I feel more than any other artist, it's constantly having eyes on them because not only just, there's this expectation, but also they're putting out so much content. They have
Yeah.
their V Lives, they have Run BTS, they have all these docu series and movies, they have their concerts, they have Bangtan Bombs. They have so much where people are constantly engaging in them. And I
Yeah.
feel like, and I feel like they're having fun while they're doing all this, but that's like you're saying, that's just so many people watching them. And I feel that, once you become kind of an idol or if you make your name for yourself in an entertainment industry, whether it's an actor, an artist, it's kind of hard for you to adjust to a life where, oh, you could go out and buy an iPad without people
Yeah.
wanting to come up to you and take your picture. So, you go in there and you literally say, just give me whatever you got that's the best and I got to get out of here because these people are gonna, try and wanting to take pictures with me and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's hard to go about day-to-day things, but I really loved your comparison of JHope and Jimin because I feel like Jimin has always kind of been more of a carefree kind
Yeah.
of like I want to have fun spirit. He's always been, like the angel wanting to take care of anybody. Whereas JHope, and especially with this docu series, we started to learn. I feel like he's kind of along with RM, like the caring parent. He's always like,
Yeah.
make sure that you're safe. You know, make sure that you're safe. Do you need a mask? You should go out with
Yeah.
a mask, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I totally agree. I think that, and it was nice that they got to joke a little bit when they got back in the car, because I think that, when they're together, it's better. Like when
Yeah.
there's more than one person, like the second Jimin left and then J-Hope's there to watch what might happen, I think that's when like catastrophic thoughts come to mind, because it's like, oh, now we have a risk. And so
Hmm.
it's very clear that, what they say about each other is very true. Like together, they're better. And especially in these situations where you're struggling, mentally, then being together is where it's
Yeah.
at.
Yeah. And I just want to touch on Jin a little bit too. I know we already kind of did, but I just, first of all, may I just say, Jin in pajamas, I'm living for it. Every
Always.
single time we see Jin in pajamas, it just makes me so happy because I'm like, who wears, no one really wears pajama sets anymore. And the fact that he still
Yep.
does, it just makes my heart very warm. I love it. We were just missing RJ. But,
Exactly.
I feel like for me specifically, I feel like it's always very interesting when I watch Jin being very vulnerable because
Yeah.
he is worldwide handsome. He even says it himself. He's Jin of BTS who is always cheerful. And
Yeah.
so when I see him kind of opening up and being vulnerable, I just find it very fascinating because it's so different than what we obviously see in all the content that they're putting out. But his line of, I've had friends and they've kind of come and gone because it's difficult to be around me, it's just very heartbreaking because you've been given this great opportunity to make music, to do something that you really want to do, but there's people in your life who I don't know, how long these friends have been around with him, but maybe these friends have been around since you were very young and all of a sudden they can't handle kind of what what goes on around you.
Yeah.
It's a very sad reality.
Yeah, I agree. And especially since we watch Jin specifically on, all of the shows, Bon Voyage, no matter what the show is, Jin is the one that's socializing the most and clearly yearns for people and wants to talk to people. And of course, he's got, the other side that he wants to be alone too, like any human does. But that was really sad. And he's the oldest one, and he got pulled off the street. And that story again comes up to where his life was changed pretty suddenly. And I know, there's trainee time, but like not being able to keep friends around makes sense. But it is sad because they're getting to be, Jin's close to 30. And to have people come and go like that is, I think, okay when we're younger and in your early 20s, because that's what you're used to, right? That's what all of us are used to. But then when you get
Hmm.
closer there, you want some constants. And if you don't find them in the industry, like V, for instance, all of his friends from the TV show, and he gets to like be with that clique, and like JK gets the 97 liner clique, and we don't see Jin have that. And so yeah, it's sad.
Yeah. I like the fact, Trina, that you bring up kind of the fact that Jin is the oldest and he's closer to
Yeah,
30, because, when you're young and in your 20s, you kind of have this flexibility to kind of live in the moment. I mean, RM even talks about, what will life be like for him when he's in his 30s,
yeah,
because I feel like the 20s are some of the most unstable years of your life. You're trying to figure it out.
totally.
Obviously, it's very different for BTS. They, have a great career going for them in their 20s. But I
Yeah,
feel like for them as they get older, we talk about how when we get older in our 30s, we're going to hopefully get stability. I feel like right now they have some good stability, but they want even more once they get older, because that's just kind of what you want. You've lived like this very hectic, kind of changing day to day life. When you
yeah,
have those moments of rest, you kind of want to live a little normally.
yeah, absolutely. But they definitely don't live normally, that's for sure.
No, but they don't. But at the same time, they
Yeah,
love it. They have these
exactly,
moments that they share with us, but at the end of the day, they're happy and they love it and they let us know that. So
for sure.
that's good. And so this episode kind of ends with the press conference for Map of the Soul Persona, and goes as a great segue right into episode 4, which is all about the Speak Yourself Encore tour. Now,
Yeah,
what were your overall thoughts about episode 4?
I loved it because you went to the LA show, right? You went to Rose Bowl.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was at 2 of the Rose Bowl shows too, and it was really like watching this episode was so fun, and so, especially in a time like we're in now where we didn't get to go this year, being able to just be reminded of how great it was, and seeing that they felt the same way that we felt at the exact same time. There's something like very magical about that. So I loved this whole episode, and of course informative for what they were thinking and how they were feeling about the pressures of the time and how things were going to work. And it was like last minute because they just got off promo and all that stuff. But seeing them happy with the response of us, I guess, was amazing.
Yeah. I kind of like you're saying, I loved this episode because it kind of went into the Speak Yourself tour, which was not that long ago. It,
No.
a lot of the anniversaries for the beginning of the Speak Yourself tour just passed, this past May. People were saying, oh, MetLife, it's been 1 year since MetLife, it's been 1 year since Rose Bowl. So those memories coming up is a little sad because, like you were saying, Trina, right now we don't have the opportunity to see the Map of the Soul world tour that they were going to do. So it's kind of nice to re-experience it through this documentary as well.
For sure.
And something else that I liked about this episode was, obviously, with kind of Bring the Soul and these first 3 episodes of Break the Silence, we're seeing how Love Yourself affected the members kind of as a being, kind of how it helped their growth and their experience, and but how, as we had mentioned, it also brought them hardships. I
Yeah,
feel like in this episode, we saw more of just the day-to-day challenges, not necessarily
yeah,
something that affects them so significantly, but just the things that you don't account for until you actually have to.
yeah,
Like for example, just their first performance, knowing that you don't have that much time to rehearse before you have to put on a show, or them mentioning they didn't get an actual tech rehearsal before they left for the tour because they were just coming off of Love Yourself, and they immediately basically went to Speak Yourself.
yeah, absolutely. I still question when RM at the beginning, when something was going on tech wise, and they couldn't figure it out, and he was basically just like, I guess I have to wing it. What was that? Did you catch that?
See, I wasn't entirely sure about that
Yeah,
too. I don't know if it was like he wasn't able to fully like do a full out tech rehearsal for some reason.
yeah,
Army, if you are watching and you were able to decipher that
yes,
scene, please let us know in the comments, because that was something that, like you, Trina, I didn't fully catch on to either.
yeah, yeah. That it was not good. We know that, but of
Yeah.
course he pulled it off because that's actually his solo during that tour is my favorite solo performance, I think, from that tour. So he pulled it off great, whatever it was.
You didn't even notice.
You'd never notice.
Which is literally the message about like this entire series is us armies never notice because they just have so much fun and give so much energy and a great performance.
Exactly.
And one of the things about that great performance is like I love the point that they made about how they didn't approach the Speak Yourself tour as the encore tour. I like how they approached it as a completely new tour, and I think that was the right mindset just because, you know, it was like new stuff added from Map of the Soul, but also songs from Love Yourself. And I feel like if it's like, okay, this is just an addition, there's so much going on in your head. There could be a chance of like, oh, I'm mixing tours. But the fact that they're separating them, I think definitely helps kind of, you know, as they go on.
Yeah. And their mindset too. It's like, okay, we got to hop to this new thing, this new vibe, these new, even the wardrobe, and just seeing kind of that have to happen so fast. And they're involved in everything. Even JHope was like, are we doing accessories now? And she was like, yeah, we got to do everything right now because this starts right now. One other thing I want to point out that I didn't point out last week, but obviously we love any soundtrack that comes with these because it's all BTS songs, but specifically the soundtrack on this docu-series has been so fun because most of it is like throwbacks, like 2013, 2014, and, you know, around those eras. And I love that we're listening to those songs, but watching present day them. I just think it's a lot of fun.
It's, oh my gosh. Sorry, I just had a moment because I love the fact that you bring that up just because, you know, obviously this is last year they're going over the tour from last year, but this year marks 7 years, which is very big. They started as 7. This is their 7th anniversary. And I feel like right now in the time this documentary is coming out, just the idea of like we've been hearing so much about them talking and their music, you know, kind of how they've come to be, like basically watching them grow throughout the years, and the fact that they're incorporating the old music on or some of their older tracks on this docuseries, just like it really feels full circle. It's like here we are today at probably the highest peak that we can be, but what you're hearing is how we started. Oh,
exactly.
I love how I don't know if they intended that.
They did.
I love that.
Everything is so intended. The second tonight during I don't remember which episode, I think it was 4, when Second Grade came on, I was like, they're just killing this, like these vibes of like here we are now. And you're totally right, they obviously planned it because everything they do, the strategy is perfect.
They are geniuses the way everything is done, and so much sometimes honestly goes over my head, but when I have those aha moments, I feel, and I know a lot of armies get that same moment of just like, oh my gosh, you got me in the field, because that was brilliant.
Absolutely. That's the other reason to follow fan accounts too, because there are so many times where things are missed and then someone will say something and I'll be like, oh, that's what we were doing. Now I get it. And they're way smarter than my brain can calculate sometimes. So love it. Thankful for all the army that clue me in sometimes.
Oh yeah. Yes. Thank you, Army, for really helping us out. Because sometimes when they come out with special announcements, which we'll get into with our news, I'll never know what the heck they're trying to tease us with, but I'm so happy people have great theories.
Exactly.
So kind of moving forward, so we get the first date, which is in LA, and then we go to Speak Yourself in Chicago, which again, having to fight the day-to-day struggles of the concert, which I caught it as this is the first concert that they've been on where they've ever experienced rain. And that might make sense because, you know, it's only the past few tours that they've gotten the chance to play open stadiums.
Yeah.
So that might be why, is they just haven't really done it until now. But once again, the day-to-day challenges that they are facing, it's just like, okay, how do we work in rain? You know, can we still do choreography? What can we do that's safe enough? You know, how do we protect, like, will equipment be affected, kind of stuff, kind of thing.
Yeah. And I love, obviously it's scary, but I love that again we get the notes from the older fellas that Jimin and JK need to not do anything wild in the rain when their feet just feel like doing it. I think that's probably the hardest part for them, is that they're so used to, they're just moving all the time. And when they hear a song, it's not like they probably, it's hard to just control yourself to not move to what you're supposed to do. So it just makes it really dangerous, and a slippery stage. Dang, we've watched these guys slip before with no rain. So, imagine what can happen with it. So it is really scary, but you know what? Chicago in the summer and we're outside. That's
worse.
Yeah, like there's a risk always.
Yeah. I mean, we saw it in just the last episode where they were on a tour, where they were at a show for Love Yourself, and it was scorching hot, and JHope was the one to kind of have to be like, I need to take it down so that way I don't overdo it and hurt myself. And the same thing, when there's raining, they need to take that moment and be like, okay, what can we do to assure our safety? And yeah, I feel like you were saying, Trina, for JK and Jimin, they are so used to just performing that it's hard for them to kind of take that step back, because they want to perform, they want to go full out, they want to give like that high energy performance. So for them, they're figuring out, okay, how can I still do that and feel like I'm doing that, but also making sure that I'm staying safe.
Exactly. Yeah, it's scary because it's so unpredictable is the problem. And everything is unpredictable, of course, as we've seen with other injuries of theirs, but add some elements to it and gets scarier.
Yeah, it definitely does. But they pulled off a great show, and they're having so much fun after the concert. Like just these little moments of like them enjoying themselves make me so happy, because obviously with these documentaries we hear a lot about what's troubling them and kind of what's going on, but whenever we get these moments of happiness, it's like, oh, I'm happy that they're happy.
Exactly. And it is nice to remember, why they do a lot of choreo at the beginning. And then at the end of it, it's more of performing and being with the audience. And so it's nice to even see that now, because it's a sign of them slowing down a little bit too and taking it in. And that's why they can have fun after the show, because they've settled down a little bit and they haven't fully exhausted themselves yet, unlike in the dire heat or, whatever that is.
Yeah, for sure. So they are starting, this episode was all about starting the Speak Yourself tour. There's a ton of new there's like new songs on this new EP that just came out, and obviously they're doing a lot of press for this, and because this was their comeback, which by the way, because I'm a slightly newer ARMY,
Okay.
this just the idea of like being introduced to K-pop culture and hearing exactly what a comeback is was so fascinating, because because just like in normal music industry, when you hear comeback, you assume somebody kind of fell and had kind of like an embarrassing moment where they weren't recording, where they weren't playing because something scandalous went on and now they're making a comeback. That's what you think of when you hear about comeback. But in K-pop, comeback is just like, oh, we're literally just coming back with more music. Here's our performances.
Yeah.
It's such a different idea and concept.
And it's once, for all the groups, it's generally, unless there's something going on, once or twice a year, you get a comeback. And it's like a positive thing. But that's, another cultural thing too, where that's a positive word. And here it's more of like a, what's going to happen. But when we get a comeback in K-pop, it's like, yeah, thank God they're back soon, or back again, or whatever it happens to be. So I love that. I haven't thought about that in a long time.
Yeah, but it's just a positive thing. I love it. So anyway, going back to kind of messages and goals, because they're doing this comeback, they're having press conferences for Persona, and they're talking, and they often get asked about, kind of what's the message behind this song, or what's your goal. And what I loved about this segment was that even though they are 7 members, and they're so close and they're able to communicate, they have mentioned that they're also different, and their answers were different throughout this entire segment, and I loved kind of hearing their different perspectives about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's always nice to see their Korean interviews too, because it's nice to be able to watch them all get to speak for themselves and to
Oh
all
yeah.
share their opinions and for them to feel like they make sense. Whereas
Mhm.
here where we were watching, we love watching RM obviously, but he kind of, and he's done some tricks with it, but usually it's something big. He has the weight of the world on his shoulders to kind of speak for everyone. And so I'm glad that in things like this, we get to see that they all do have the varied opinions. But of course, RM comes through with the, kind of majestic feel of what his expectations always are. And it's to put out new messages every time, depending on what's going on, and to hope to be felt about each new message every time. And so it's like a hard
Mhm.
question to answer. And I like that because that's real.
What I love is that for a lot of their songs, there is a message, but the
Yeah.
message isn't always black and white.
No.
I feel like it's very hard for them to answer those questions about what's the message because it's not like they go into writing a song and say, like, this is what the message is going to be. This is what I want to come across. I feel like the message is there and can be interpreted by whoever is listening to it.
Absolutely. And whoever wrote the song in particular too, they're going to touch on different things. Like if you ever listen to one of Suga's tracks, a solo track, you'll hear him maybe for like a couple of bars talk about mental health, but the whole thing doesn't need to be about mental health. There's always going to be other elements and other just lyrically good lyrics that aren't necessarily having to pinpoint something and teaching us a lesson every time. So they mix music and lessons and meaning very well.
Mhm. And I like how it all changes. They're talking about, we're always growing, we're always reflecting and rediscovering ourselves, and they're always changing. And so their messages are going to obviously change, or what they're writing about at the moment is going to change. They're
Yeah,
talking about dreams, and what may have been their dream at one point may not be their dream in the future because maybe they've changed or maybe they've achieved that dream. They talked about goals, and a lot of the time when we think, oh, what are your goals? We say like, oh, it's they want to get to the Grammys, they want to get this amount of followers on Twitter. But I love that Suga was like, we want to have a goal that's not just about numbers and figures. So their goals aren't just let's be very successful. Our goal should also be like how we feel about our music and how we're putting it out there.
yeah, and their goals come from their hardships from the beginning because
Hmm.
these guys had a very difficult beginning. They did not pop off right away by any means, and they had a lot of naysayers the whole time. And their music in the beginning, if you look at the lyrics in the beginning, obviously this is also based on their life experience and with age and all of that, but they're very different, the first like couple of albums than now because they evolved with the experience and their expectations are no longer to only just like be loved and number one and to be winning at music programs. It's about what they actually went through and remembering where they came from to keep it on that track.
Hmm. Yeah. I love it. I just I'm so happy that they are able to write what they want
Yeah,
and they are able to kind of give this message and have it be different from everyone because everyone's different. And I think, everyone finds music at different points of their life.
for
And
sure.
this is kind of what makes BTS's music so universal to
Mm,
anyone, regardless of what language you speak, because the message can resonate with you.
absolutely. Yeah, that's the whole thing. That's why there are new army all the time. Is because you'll discover a song and then maybe look up the translation and be like,
Hmm.
"Oh, dang, that actually speaks to me pretty hard because that's what they're writing about." And some songs are fun, like Ampan Man, or they're fun, but they also have meaning to those too. Like that also has a
Hmm.
special message, but it's a little sillier. So like, there's something to relate to in everything.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I completely agree with that. So that just about one last thing I want to touch on was how the episode ended with Jin saying he doesn't care about this like grandiose idea of being influential, which, is just a very humbling thing, I think, for them to say because it just once again shows that they're not in it to be super successful. They're not in it to be, reaching these high numbers and breaking these records like they are. They just want to put out music that makes them feel good. And he even kind of says it's not about the message. Like if I feel good, like that's what matters. So I just thought that was a very humbling thing to say and to end the episode with, because they're not trying to be influential, but they are.
Exactly. They just are. And I think it's also easy to say, or not easy, but something that just like genuinely good hearted humans say and mean. It's like hearing him say something like that is so obvious that he would say something like that, because they're not hiding themselves by any means. There are plenty of groups that you can see a different vibe from and different goals, and they're just not that.
That was just the perfect way, I think, to end that episode after that segment. So that wraps up our review of episodes 3 and 4. Now we're going to go into a bit of news.
Yes. I will start.
AfterBuzz
Okay,
TV
so Big Hit hit us with an image with a blurred D-7, and we all know that means 7 days to D-Day. But what D-Day are we talking about? Because it doesn't make sense for TXT. Their comeback was literally yesterday, and the other groups all have things happening that are announced. So is it
Plus,
a BTS?
Yeah, well, I was going to say, plus the BTS Big Hit Count retweeted it. So that kind of confirmed that it was
BTS. But we know about the Japanese album. We know about Bang Bang Con, which you'll talk about shortly. So what is there to know? It's got to be giant for them to do a no-faced countdown. What do you think? Do you have any? What do you think?
I had like so many theories. The thing that makes it so hard to figure out what it could possibly be is the fact that this was tweeted by Big Hit, not BTS Big Hit, not BTS. Like, this was tweeted by Big Hit. So it's like, okay, what's so big that the company is tweeting about this? I was like, is it possibly a new video game? Is it maybe leading up to a series of videos that we're going to get about the music process for their new album? Is it going to be an album cover release? Is it going to be, a mixtape? I think a lot of armies are suspecting that it's a mixtape because Big Hit previously tweeted about RM's Mono. Well, that sounded weird. RM's mixtape Mono. Yeah, there we go.
Interesting, but they've never really done the mysterious thing for any of the other announcements. And so I'm thinking it's big, big, big. And I don't know what that means, but I'm ready for it, kind of.
I'm beyond ready for it. It's also likely that it could be something related to Festa, but once again, Big Hit doesn't really tweet about Festa.
No.
So
they just tweet about it eventually. Like when it comes up, when there's something to talk about, when there's tickets to buy, when they'll do it eventually, but not like mysterious announcement style. I don't even think we've ever gotten that for an album ever.
Yeah. I'm just gonna take a shot in the dark here and say it's Yeontan's mixtape. Completely out of the blue. Like, who would expect Yeontan to have a mixtape?
I don't know. I think, but that's the type of thing that I'm talking about. You know what I mean?
Like super unexpected.
Yeah, like who's it gonna be? What's it gonna be about? Because we don't even know who's been super busy and who hasn't individually. We haven't really been informed of that. So we'll see. But that's the news I've got.
It'll come soon and we'll all freak out.
So soon.
For sure. So our next bit of news is that we are getting another live concert. We are getting Bang Bang Con Live. It's a 90-minute concert that will be available for purchase on Weverse Shop. And it's going to kind of have, Weverse has expressed it's going to have this new multi-view feature that's going to kind of like bring us into the room to kind of get that lifelike concert experience, which I think is so important and great right now, especially considering that ARMY doesn't get another concert. Like BTS and ARMY don't get to be together for this upcoming concert. So the fact that they're still looking for ways to connect is amazing. And I think obviously everything that's going on with the health crisis right now, we kind of need this moment of happiness and excitement.
Sure.
So it's something to look forward to. And, I think that it's going to be, I don't know necessarily if it's going to be songs that they would have sang on this upcoming tour, if it's going to kind of be, through the years, like every like songs from each of their eras, like we kind of saw in the last Bang Bang Con. So I'm excited because like kind of this countdown, we have the announcement, but we don't know exactly what they're going to be doing.
Exactly. And it was obviously so fun to watch all of the old concerts. Definitely. So I went through the whole like emotional vibes that I once had. And so this time, hopefully, I think they probably will sing, you know, some more things, but I really do hope that we get to remember like 2020 for this that's a little more focused on, you know, this new album. So I hope that happens. It's interesting because there have been other K-pop concerts that have, the first was SM, they started for all the NCT groups basically, and they've been doing them a little bit interesting, and they're not as concerty vibes, and they're obviously on a big stage performing, but with no audience. I think BTS will step it up in the way of acknowledging how the viewer is going to see it in order to be properly involved.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
I think they got it.
they're good. They got production down. I'll say that.
Exactly.
So that wraps up news. We're going to go into our special segment. So as I said at the top of the show, BTS is breaking their silence, giving us a lot of details into the behind the scenes of what goes on tour. But we're also going to, you know, take a step aside and talk about how they are smashing records.
Always. They're always smashing records. I've got two for you tonight. So Jimin and Filter. He was the first Korean artist to have two solo songs surpass 70 million and 80 million streams on Spotify, among many other Spotify records, and it was for Filter and Lie. So everybody keep streaming. Let's keep making sure he gets his shouts for Filter, because that song, incredible. But what a big feat, especially with someone like Psy in front of him. So amazing. Mm-hmm. And then another one we've got, so the Reputation brand charts came out about a weekish ago, and BTS has now spent a full uninterrupted 2 years at number 1.
Wow.
Yeah, so this involves their group efforts as far as brands are concerned, and anything that's outside of their music. So they continue to be at the very top, and uninterrupted for 2 years is pretty amazing. They just signed a new deal, I think, with Lotte for their cider, which is basically like a Sprite in Korea. So they're going to be doing like that type of thing. I'm sure JHope is very excited.
Oh my gosh, I'm so happy you said that, because I was literally just about to be like, JHope is so happy right now.
Spaghetti and Sprite. So hopefully he's so stoked, and I'm stoked for him. They all look so great in like the preview of the ad. So they're killing it. They deserve it. They're the perfect brand ambassadors because they're just great guys to represent anything. So that's what I've got.
No, thank you for that. That is amazing. 2 uninterrupted. You know what I mean?
Yes.
There you go. I can't think anymore. You know exactly what I mean. It's amazing. And at this point, we all understand why. They're just so good at what they do.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that just about wraps up our after show here on Break the Silence. Thank you so much, Army, for tuning in. Be sure to like and subscribe and leave your comments in the section below, so that way we can talk to you. We obviously love talking about BTS. There's so much going on. There's so much to be released. We want to get all your thoughts and opinions, so definitely leave us a comment. Trina, where can Army find you on social media?
Yeah, y'all can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Hey Trina Dong.
And what else do you host?
Oh yeah, and I host K-Pop News Weekly on every Monday, and you can find that on Twitter, AfterBuzz TV's Twitter and Instagram. What about you, Veronica?
Hey, Army, you can find me, Veronica Valencia, on Twitter and Instagram at it's me, Veronica_V. If you want more Bangtan specific related news, you can tune into the BTS Buzz every week, typically Mondays. Also on AfterBuzz social media accounts at AfterBuzz TV on Twitter and Instagram. Again, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
Our
Bye,
founder,
guys.
Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.